Welcome to the Leverage Show. This is Brett Ingram, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about perspective. So, what is our perspective, and why is it important that we recognize exactly how we look at the world and how we view things that we do? Well, our perspective, much like the way you see the world through your eyes and you experience the world through your senses, our perspective is really the way that our mind does the same thing. It's the way that our mind interprets all of the things that we see, feel, hear, and interact with on a daily basis. And what's interesting about perspective and what's fascinating about it, but what's also vitally important about it, is the fact that it's dynamic, it changes. As we grow, as we evolve, as we become different people throughout our lives, whether it's in our role as a business owner or our role as a husband or a wife or a spouse or a child or a parent, whatever it is, a teammate, our own perspective evolves as our experiences continue to accumulate. So as we go through things in our lives and we internalize various, aspects of those, like the way we felt about this, or the way that we saw that, or the way we reacted to this particular thing, or the way we were treated. All of these things go to shape and affect our perspective. And so we may start off in one place and we may end up in a totally different place. And while that's, an exciting aspect of life, there's also a lesson to be learned, and there's a golden nugget to be sort of plucked out of there if we're careful and we're paying attention. Because the value of perspective is that it gives us sort of a historical view of the way things were. And it shows us our very evolution of the way that we feel and the way that we think about certain things. I'm sure you've heard the expression, if you haven't used it yourself, if only I knew then what I know now. Now, if you're talking about picking stocks, that's obviously something that's just pure, luck and based on being able to foresee the future. But most of the time when you hear that kind of thing, it's related to something that we've done, something that we're doing, and mistakes that we made along the road that, had we known what we learned through the process and we could have gone back and skipped all that learning, we would have gotten to where we wanted to go a lot faster. And there's a lot of value in that. There's a real reason that we say that, because look, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, time is ultimately our scarcest resource. And so we want to take the maximum amount of advantage of that time. We want to get the maximum amount of results for the minimal amount of effort that we possibly can, because that is how we can get to our optimal life. Where we're in a situation where we're enjoying as much as possible, we're achieving as much as possible, we're living and experiencing as much as possible. All of that is based on that. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of value to trial and error, and that's actually the point that I want to make. So when it comes to perspective, here's the really important takeaway and the really important thing that we want to focus on and we want to harness the power of. Now, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I've been in situations where I've learned a tough lesson. And it may be in, let's just use business, for example. And so something happened, maybe it was a product launch and it didn't go as well as I would have liked. And then I realized when I sort of analyzed it after the fact, I made these 5 mistakes. I didn't follow up with partners, and I didn't test my offer, and there were these 5 things that I did wrong. And wow, if I had just done those, I would have known it, I would have fixed it, and I'd never be in this situation, right? So I say to myself, okay, now that I know this stuff, I'm never, ever going to launch another product without doing these 5 things. And that's, I'm never going to forget them. I mean, how could I possibly forget? I just had this, launch that didn't go well. I learned these 5 important lessons. I know how important they are. No chance I'm ever going to forget it, but I'm definitely going to get to those the next time. Now, what happens is, as time goes on and we get further removed from that traumatic event or that problem or that issue or that learning moment, and it becomes a little bit less raw for us, and it gets sort of replaced or covered over with a lot of the other stuff that we're doing. We go through a lot of other life experiences. We have a lot of other things going on. And then it becomes a question of, okay, well, now was that really that important anymore? Or did I just think it was important because it was in the moment? And I knew that there were 5 things, but geez, I can only remember 3. Well, you know what? It's not that big a deal. If it was important, I would remember it. How often have we heard that, right? But here's the reality of the situation. We're overwhelmed with information. We're overwhelmed with stimulus. And so we become creatures of habit in the sense that we need to filter things out. We need to sort of get to the core of things, and we need to eliminate noise. It's just a natural survival instinct because you can't possibly process everything that you're hit with every single day. And so ultimately, those lessons that were really important at one point are now sort of on the back burner, and they're very easy to forget. And again, another expression that's been used time and time again is, those who don't learn the mistakes of history are doomed to repeat them. And it's exactly the same thing in your own life and in your own business. If there are lessons that you learn and things that shift your perspective, change the way that you see something, it's vitally important that you track this stuff. Now, I don't care if you use an audio journal. I don't care if you use a written journal. It doesn't really matter how you write these things down. But it's really important that you sort of chronicle your own journey. And it's valuable for a number of reasons. But let's just focus on the perspective one at first. If you're not notating these different things, then if you ever forget something, you're going to your next product launch, you can go back to your last product launch and you can look to see what things that you wrote down as takeaways. Now, here's the important point about tracking this stuff. You want to write down anything that's specifically or track and notate anything that is particularly important from a procedural standpoint, for sure. Okay, I forgot 5 steps, so I'm going to write these 5 steps down, and I'm going to make sure that I don't forget those again. But it goes beyond that. You want to make sure that you write down how you're feeling and how you're thinking about what you're about to do before you do it. And here's why this is so important. Because as we evolve, okay, we may keep track of our processes. We may keep track of our procedures. But if we don't know how we interpreted what our perspective was on a given event, and we don't know what our perspective was on, how we felt about these various things that we did and that happened, then it's very difficult to know whether or not we've evolved or whether we're still stuck in the same place. For example, if I, again, at that product launch, to reach back to that same example, if I wrote down, I'm going into this product launch, I'm really excited, I've got a great product, I feel very good about it, I've done this and this and this, and these are my expectations, and I'm going to be able to do this. And, the number one most important thing I focused on was blank. Now, when I go back the next time, and I look and I see that that's the way that I felt, and I looked at it, and then the results that I got were less than what I wanted. When I go into the next one, I want to hope that my perspective is already different. I want to hope that what I'm looking at, what I'm focusing on, is different than what I did last time, because clearly that didn't work. And so it's sort of another internal check and balance. But here's where the value goes even beyond that. We all want to feel like we're growing. We all want to feel like we're evolving and developing skills and becoming better. Like a fine wine, we get better with age. A lot of people, we complain about our physical bodies breaking down. We complain about our memory or our eyesight or some of these other things. And, those are funny little, laughing moments and such. But the reality of it is, on the flip side, we gain a wealth of experience that people that are far younger than us don't have. And there's a lot of value in that. If I could go back to my own 21-year-old self with the knowledge that I have now, the difference in what I could do is astounding. And that's really the point here. Because if you chronicle that for yourself, if you keep track of all of those things, and then you go and you look back, it's an amazing diary for you to go and chronicle your own personal experience, your own personal journey of growth. Because when you are too close to it yourself, once again, you won't recognize it. You won't remember it. You may see the outward result if you build a business or you raise great kids or whatever it is that you do that's good. You may see the result of it, but you won't see your own internal growth because it's gradual. And so if you have this track record, if you have this sort of log of what you're doing and how you're feeling and how you're living, then what it does for you is it shows you, it chronicles your very own personal growth. And that's a really powerful thing. It's powerful from the perspective of knowing that your life had meaning, but it's also powerful in times of doubt and in times of struggle where you're feeling down and you're feeling like, oh, you know, I'm just a failure, things aren't working out. It gives you something to go back and look at and say, wow, I really did accomplish all of that stuff. I really did. I mean, that's the way that I used to think. And now look at the way that I think about things. It's absolutely astounding. And it can be a real life changer for you. So I challenge you to embrace that and really keep track of that, because as your perspective evolves and you're able to track that, it will be an awesome, awesome thing for you to have as a keepsake, a memento, and a motivator for the rest of your life. As always, if you have any questions or comments, share them with me at leverageshow.com or tweet them at me at #LeverageShow. And until next time, make it happen.